In the interview with Leith Van Onselen, I shall be raising the NDIS, which, according to Dr. Andrew Charlton, is a Frankenstein monster, the blame for which, he says, and he's a Labour Member of Parliament now, it was the deliberate design of Labour. The deliberate design of Labour. The problem is that under our system of responsible and representative government, Parliament, and in the first instance, the House of Representatives, is there to correct this. Burke explains this. Edmund Burke says that you choose your representative for his judgment. I should say his or her, but of course in those days it was his judgment. That's why you elect people. The founders of this country worked on that basis. They worked on the basis that we would be having responsible representative government. Responsible government means responsible to Parliament and, in the first instance, the House of Representatives. And it worked that way in the first few years. The representatives, the elected representatives, made governments accountable. But when the Labour Party emerged in Australia, unlike the UK, they adopted a very Leninist rule, something you'd expect from a Leninist party. They called it the Caucus rule. And that meant they stripped Labour members of Parliament of their judgment. The reason why we elect them is their judgment. The Caucus rule takes that away, and Labour members of Parliament are instructed on how to vote by the caucus. Now, once you do that, once one party does that, it gains an enormous leverage because it means that this powerful bloc then exists in Parliament which can be controlled. They're all told how to vote. The result is, in the two-party system, the other party does something similar. Not identical, but something similar. It's very hard to cross the floor. Some people do it occasionally, and then they lose their pre-selection. The result is, instead of what was intended by the founders, because they inherited responsible government from the United Kingdom, the British gave it to us when they gave us self-government, which began in the 1850s in Australia. The idea was there would be accountability, constant accountability of government to Parliament and to the House of Representatives. The fact is, because of the way in which the two-party system works, the way in which the caucus rule works, members of Parliament don't exercise their judgment. They vote as they are instructed. Dr. Andrew Charlton was chosen by the Prime Minister to be the Labour candidate in Parramatta. Curious, because he'd written a piece in the Sydney Morning Herald blaming the NDIS, the way in which the NDIS was designed, on Labour, and saying there was a design fault in the NDIS because the NDIS, unlike other agencies, is completely free of any control by the responsible minister. The result of this system is the House of Representatives, between elections, is virtually useless. It doesn't hold the government to account. Dr. Charlton, the member for Parramatta, should be pointing out that the reason why the NDIS is out of control and going to cost in the 2030s, on present indications, something like twice the defence budget. It will cost something in the 130 billions. 120, 130 billions. It'll be completely out of control as it is now. The House of Representatives is useless, and the government has a plan to make the Senate useless. They've got this plan, which is to increase the representation of the two territories. The High Court approved of Whitlam granting representation to the territories, although it's the State's House, and they approved of that. The number of representatives for each territory is not in the Constitution. It's a matter for Parliament. And if you've got control of Parliament, you can change the representation. So that instead of the ACT having 2 representatives, and they might as well have 2 Labor representatives because the independent there votes more often than not with Labor, is very left-wing, they're likely to get at least 3 left-wing senators, and a similar thing might happen in the Northern Territory. Well, what's the answer? We could go back to real responsible government, but the politicians are not going to do that. The answer is to increase the power of the people. Give the people far more power, and do that by introducing the Swiss system. And the Swiss system is to give the people the right to initiate referendums to change the constitution or to change the laws. There's a petition about this which gives more details on it. The strap on the screen gives you the way in which you can look at that petition. It's at change.org/take back your country. change.org/take back your country. You can read that petition, and if you want to, you can sign it. It's there, and I think it's the only way we're going to get this country out of its destiny. And I fear that the destiny of this country is to become the Argentina of the South Seas. And if you haven't studied the history of Argentina, remember that at Federation, the 2 richest countries in the world were Australia and Argentina. Argentina has since, because of its politicians, become a 3rd world country. Its wealth is so low, although it should be as rich as Australia. It was as rich as Australia. That is our destiny if we leave it in the hands of the political class.